probably should have been cut because two things that seem to repeat over and over is the scenes of brutality, how he's constantly getting battered, bruised, and just really unpleasant. We don't, as a viewer, you get the message when you know what's going on there. You don't have to constantly go back and reinforce and beat us over the head, no pun intended, about it. What is up, Jim Alexander here with Real Talker. Yes, the movie is City of Dreams, and that's what I'm going to be reviewing. You might have heard about it. It's releasing this Labor Day weekend. It on ironically a Labor Day having to do with child labor and the unfortunate and sad circumstances of that happening around the world, and it's scary. But it's at our backyards too in this country. So is the movie worth seeing? Is the message warranting you going to the movies to see it? Take a look at a clip from the film, and I'm gonna review the film for you right after it.
Any reason you rolled through that stop?
I'm sorry.
That's your son?
Yes.
Got any ID for the boy?
Yeah.
Watch the stops.
To a 2018 red Mustang belonging to Rodrigo Ramirez.
Rise and shine, homie! Rise and shine!
First shift 6:30, second shift 12:30.
All right, so you saw it. So the film's directed by first-time feature director and writer of the film, same guy, Mohit Ramchandani. Hopefully I got that right. So he's behind the writing here and the directing here, and it feels like an Angel Studios movie, at least the premise of it. But it's not an Angel Studios movie. It is a roadside attractions movie, and it sort of copies the concept of Angel Studios movies. Doesn't live up to the quality and what you kind of get from Angel Studios. And it's like it says up here, as you can see, from the executive producers of Sound of Freedom, which is a major hit. But this sort of has the same certain people involved, but just doesn't come through that way. So what is this movie about? The movie's about a young boy named Jesus, who is trafficked from Mexico, from a town called Puebla, to Los Angeles. He, as he's a kid that has big dreams and aspirations of being a soccer star for his hometown team, Puebla, but soon finds himself in a LA warehouse, sort of abandoned looking home sweatshop in downtown LA, along with many other fellow Mexicans who have been trafficked and working in the worst conditions around the clock. And they are sewing and making dresses in the story. So this is a story of Jesus and how his dreams turned into a nightmare, and sort of the world of sweatshops at our back door here in the U.S., especially in LA, ironically, where all sorts of powerful people live and celebrities. And yet when you go to a place like Santee Alley, or most of you might know it as the Fashion District, this is where it's actually filmed too, some of the scenes here at Santee Alley. And makes you think now twice what goes on in these sort of warehouses there. And it is happening. It's based on inspired on true events, sort of true story. This character of Jesus, I don't believe he is an actual person this movie is based on. I think it's more of a different stories, at least from my findings. It's been sort of a conglomeration of different stories that have been woven into this one character here. But it certainly has unfortunately happened in LA. So the message of this movie here is important. Obviously, you talk about sweatshops, child labor, human trafficking here. It just people living in such brutality that this should never be happening, especially in this country. And it is, sort of, and in a way, are we turning a blind eye to it? It's sort of known about, but maybe swept under the rug? Are authorities doing all they can to sort of stop this? And there's some potentially influential people involved uh, who are, running these industries. And yeah, just it's sort of a reminder to see that scary things are happening here. Now, the message is obviously important, no doubt about it. But how's the execution of the movie? And that's where the problem comes in here, because this movie is messy in a way. Mohit is a first-time director, and he tries to be creative, and give him props for trying to be original and not just make this sort of a documentary style drama. And he tries to really inject action into this, and it sort of becomes, instead of a a drama like a lot of these Angel movies are, this turns into sort of an action movie with running sequences and handheld camera when the kid's running through Santee Alley, and it's sort of like a 10-minute scene of him running and trying to infuse this action and pacing and some kind of weird almost comedy where, for an example, the kid's running away from a dangerous man who's trying to catch him and bring him back to the sweatshop. And he's running through these stores in Santee Alley, and no one seems to care or notice. And maybe that's kind of reflective that people just don't care unless it's them, especially in that, everyone's sort of looking out for the cops themselves, especially if they're trying to sell illegal things. But yeah, he stops, and there's this kind of bougie chick and her husband, or whatever, boyfriend, probably not a husband, but they're in the shop and trying on jeans, and he's just completely being douchey and ignoring her, and the kid's running like on fire, basically, running away, and she stops and is like, which jeans should I pick? And he just stands there and picks it. Like, it just makes it kind of goofy and cartoony. It's not necessary for a movie of this message and setting. I thought trying to really amp up the action and sort of lessen the message in a way. I didn't understand that. I think it should have held the same narrative. And you get some certain things here that are overkills, especially the scenes of brutality where this kid, Jesus, who, by the way, he's played pretty well by Ari Lopez, sort of a young actor at the time here. This movie was shot years ago, as you can see. Another actress here, Renata Vaca, you might have seen her in Saw movies recently. In a recent Saw movie, she looks a lot younger here. So everyone seems younger. This probably was shot years ago too. And finally, getting the funding to be seen, by a wide audience. But yeah, so he gets Jesus constantly is getting battered, beaten, bloodied, abused, and it's like when you see it once, sends a message. It's startling, especially since you see the lashing he gets and the cuts, almost like reminiscent of Jesus, on the cross. There's a scene where the one of the handlers here takes an hot iron, and sticks it on his chest. Just you see it once or twice, and that's enough. But I think here we just constantly get a repeats of these scenes, and it's almost kind of grotesque where it's not necessary. It's not necessary to constantly be showing that. It's almost like a bad way of time wasting. This movie's clocks in at almost 2 hours, an hour 53, and it could have been much shorter. And these are scenes you probably should have been cut, because two things that seem to repeat over and over is the scenes of brutality, how he's constantly getting battered, bruised, and just really unpleasant. We don't, as a viewer, you get the message when you know what's going on there. You don't have to constantly go back and reinforce and beat us over the head, no pun intended, about it. And another scene is where where the kid is constantly visualizing himself as as a professional soccer player at Puebla. And it's sort of like, yes, I get it. It illustrates him trying to envision a world that's that he dreamt of, imagined, but how many times over and over can you see every time something bad happens, he goes to a flashback and, an imagination of him, dribbling past defenders, shooting on goals, scoring goals, it just, once again, overkill. Show it twice, we get that. That's his sort of mental escape, but it just becomes repetitive. It's almost, I don't know if they copied and pasted the same scene, the same, sort of dream visual. Once again, repetition. Didn't like how the kid was also portrayed sort of as like Spider-Man, especially when he's on doing that sort of chase scene where he's just jumping on top of things. And yes, he's younger and he's quicker and all that, and these adults chasing him, but it was almost comical. They're like falling and tripping and he's throwing things at him, and like it's like Tom and Jerry sort of cat and mouse game, and they can't get to him, and it just seemed so unrealistic. And made things kind of goofy again. And it was just unnecessary sort of punch of cinema to add this action feel and cinematic quality to it. I don't understand why it was done. It cheapens this movie and the message of this movie. I thought the focus should have been on the message that the movie's trying to portray, and not these sort of fast-paced visuals that don't add to anything, and take away from the message. I mean, there's think the best parts of the movie maybe been when there's tender moments when he connects with Jesus connects with Renata Vaca's character, who's named Elena. She looks more mature and older than him, but sometimes boys don't mature and don't hit puberty enough. But seems like when they share sort of a kiss, whether it's a visualization, I couldn't tell if it was a visualization of him or it was actually happening. But they do share moments, and she kind of looks out for him. But it's interesting because the actor here, Ari, looks very mature facially, but his body looks that of a child, and he probably was at the time. But it's very interesting. He's got a very expressive, emoting, mature-looking face, which was probably a big part of his casting here too, because he does not say a word. He just shouts and screams at some point in the movie later on. But there's no dialogue. He's nonverbal. He's a mute in this movie. So you see a lot of it with a lot of scenes are sort of zoom ins, close ups, neck up shots to sort of see his facials and reactions. I think he did fine. He was okay in that role, especially for younger actor with not that much experience, I guess. If you look at his resume, I thought he did well, and you do have some notable actors in this movie. Jason Patrick plays a cop here. You have Sam Levine plays one of the baddies, and Diego Calva's in here playing one of the sweatshop workers here too. So you do have sort of, maybe at the time they weren't well known besides Jason Patrick, but a lot of these actors are Renata Vaca, who are now kind of definitely more noticeable and known. So this film's got a lot of backing. It's gotten backing from Vivek Ramaswamy, politician who was potentially could have been a Democratic nominee here. He's been a supporter of the movie. Sylvester Stallone's come out supporting this movie. You have Tony Robbins being one of the producers involved in this movie. You have Luis Fonsi, as you see here in the back. His name is even on the poster. As an executive producer. So you have some significant people of stature here involved in backing this movie. So we'll see how that helps sort of send this message of this movie. But the message here, I feel, is it's at the core, but it's constantly sort of glazed over with flair and glitz unnecessarily. I don't understand why the director tried to do this. And yes, he tried to add some pizzazz to a story that might be very sort of melodramatic and stoic, maybe, because you see these characters in a sweatshop and it's depressing, but it was just unnecessary. It changed the feel and mood of the movie, and if for some reason it sort of made it feel less important, and it should be important. So yeah, just interesting and choices that didn't mesh. Here's a big takeaway for me. So yeah, it's a mixed bag here. I mean, because it could have been a lot more than it ended up being. I think the execution here and the idea and the message are sort of mixed, not in a best way. And that's unfortunate. So now to scores. Let's give some scores for this movie. Acting. I thought, for what it was, the acting wasn't too comical over the top, unless for some scenes, but that's more on the writing. I give it a 6 out of 10. I think the kid did enough. It's tough to sort of follow the character, and maybe that's why they added these action scenes, because you're dealing here with a character who's a mute and doesn't say anything. So it is harder to connect with him. I felt like if he had at least said a few things, even in Spanish, because there's, subtitles there too at certain points, it just would have let the viewer connect more with this character. But him not being, um, voicing anything, and besides a scream later on, being nonverbal, I think detracts a little bit at some point. Now, entertainment. It tried to be entertaining. I don't think it's one of those movies that really has to be entertaining. It's more about the message here that's a focus. But um, I will try to focus on a message here and omit the entertainment attempts here, because that really devalued the movie. So I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10 on entertainment. Plot and story, probably the highest ranked part of this movie, because plot, revolves a serious issue, and it's one of those movies where it makes you hopefully think when you leave the theater. No matter how the execution was, you kind of just got to take away the message of it and the attempt here, what's at the forefront. So it's startling that this happens in sort of Los Angeles. That was, I think, the biggest takeaway. It's kind of scary in so many ways. So that was 7.5 out of 10 for plot story. Impression. Once again, impression would have been, it's skewed because it would have been different had this stayed to the basics and not tried to be something it wasn't or shouldn't be. So the impression kind of suffers in that and becomes a 6 out of 10. And then creativity. He tried to be creative here with this movie and do a lot of things and go against the sort of the genre. And sometimes things are best left alone and not to be messed with. And that's a classic example of this movie, being that. So creativity here is an attempt, but it just doesn't hit. So 5.5 out of 10 for that. I felt like I was kind of kind with these scores too, because the misses were big misses, but ultimately it's still a movie you should probably see, because just for awareness sake, of what kind of happens and what's being illustrated here. So there's that for City of Dreams. In the meantime, you can help my dreams it come true, and smash that subscribe button. It really helps when you guys do that, so much appreciated. So hit that subscribe button right now, and like it. So if you like this review, if this helps out, give that thumbs up button right there, and let me know that. And of course, comment if you've seen the movie, if you're on the verge debating to see it, if you know about, heard about the story, you've been following the news on this, let me know what you think. I'm curious to hear opinions. Was I completely off? That it's kind of, struck me the wrong way, and, kind of turned me off about what was shown on screen and executed, as opposed to the message, which it should have been about, which I think more so Angel Studios movies hold to, is the message, and not try to make it so cinematic and entertaining when this isn't an entertaining subject matter. It's a serious subject matter. So I get it. It's a movie. It's not a documentary. You're supposed to add a little bit, but you could have done it by still doing certain things that were done. But I think the repetition of them and trying to knock it into you was a problem. So there's that on my review for City of Dreams. And yeah, on this Labor Day weekend, I still urge you to see this movie, even though the final score for it is 61%. So yeah, forgot to mention that a little earlier, but 61 is the percentage of this movie. So not bad, but not good or great either. It's just sort of very mediocre, meddling, or whatever you want to call it. So there's that. But on Labor Day, it's important to recognize the holiday and recognize the things that are going on that are just uncalled for in society, and that a stop needs to be put to. So there's that. So enjoy your holiday weekend, everyone, and I'll see you when I see you on the next one. See ya.